Hello everyone and good morning. We are Team 11 and welcome to our presentation on UX dark patterns. By the end of this presentation, we are hoping you can accomplish a few different things. Understand what UX dark patterns are, be able to think of some real-world examples, and understand the ethics and the future of the industry.
Definition of UX dark patterns. Dark patterns are user interfaces built by designers to purposely take advantage of human behavior and psychology, and to trick the user into making decisions that may not be in their best interest. Let's look at the history of UX dark patterns. Dark patterns started long before the internet. Deceptive user situations take many forms. Before the web and user interfaces were a hive for dark patterns, scammers used phone calls, mail, and services such as insurance or credit cards to take advantage of a user. We all know the age-old scammer patterns. It's common knowledge now that if someone calls and tells you you want $1 million, it's a lie. Another scam call is being told someone you know is in trouble and needs help, or the perfect job opportunity is waiting for you, or asking for money for a charity cause, or urgently telling you your insurance policy needs to be renewed. The list goes on. Over time, scammers became less obvious. Instead of blatant lies, business owners started learning subtle ways to entice a customer. Retail owners started pricing items a cent or dollar less to trick the brain into thinking it was cheaper than it was. For example, 2.99 triggers your brain to think it's $2 instead of $3. With the rise of the web, scammers moved online. As the internet started growing, businesses got better at using deceptive tactics to entice and trap users into doing what they wanted. The big "you won $1 million" scam were still around, but the tactics were becoming less obvious. Big names established the patterns. It didn't take long for big companies like Facebook, Microsoft, and more to take on deceptive patterns to take advantage of their users. A specific example that you may be familiar with is when Mark Zuckerberg designed Facebook to trick users into sharing more information about themselves than they intended to or would agree to. He would then sell their info to third parties who would use it for ad marketing and more. After decades, these patterns were named. In 2010, user experience designer Harry Brignall started recognizing the large numbers of deceptive patterns in UX designs. He decided to name these patterns and start bringing awareness to the misleading interfaces that flooded the internet. He coined the phrase dark patterns and started a website to document the different kinds of patterns. He also started to track the many companies that use them and shame them for their deceptive tactic in the user experience world. To quote Brignall, "I realize now that I knew the name for what had happened to me. I would never fall victim to it again," Brignall says. That's empowering. Naming something deceptive is a way to give you control over it.
Facts around UX dark patterns. At the time, dark patterns aren't necessarily illegal, as some of them take advantages of the users, but others don't necessarily do that. So there's like a fine line between legal and illegal kind of deal when it comes to the UX dark patterns. But considering the following facts, which include UX should always put the user first, because that's what user experience design is all about, making the user satisfied and creating an easy way to solve the problems. Influencing the user isn't always necessarily evil. Also, they need to keep in mind that dissatisfied users are less likely to return. So creating a UX dark pattern that's going to affect the user in a negative way is going to reduce also the amount of chances of him returning. Businesses needs should be put in line with users' needs, and like thinking about all that, hopefully they can come to an agreement and not have to take advantages of the customers. So, despite the ethics around UX dark patterns being gray, it is still helpful to think about these facts and consider every aspect before actually going into creating a UX dark pattern on a website or an app. So it's really up to the UX designer to decide when or when not to use dark pattern. But either decision should be made in favor of the user.
In these next few slides, we will speak about a few different dark pattern examples. On this slide, we have examples of trick questions and sneak in the basket. The trick question dark pattern is common and often used to confuse and deceive the user, tricking the user into giving responses they didn't intend or deceiving a user at first glance. In the example on the right, this technique is used in online registering services. The first box means to opt in, while the second box means to opt out. The snake in the box dark pattern is an addition of an item or payment into the cart basket. Sneaking is typically done without the user's knowledge, resulting in spending more money. In the presented example, this can be seen as the additional payments of pencils, taxes, and a donation to the website provider. On this slide, we have examples of Roach Motel and privacy zuckering. A Roach Motel dark pattern is a design that makes it very easy to get into a situation, but very difficult to get out of. In particular, this pattern is usually used by subscription-based services. Some examples of these services can be seen on the right. The trend in this pattern is the amount of time it takes the user to set up the account and also close the account, while some may vary from 3 clicks to set up the account to 8 clicks to get rid of an account. Concerning privacy zuckering, this dark pattern is getting a callback. Named after the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, in the early stages of Facebook's growth, the company created a reputation for making users overshare information. In today's world, this pattern has moved behind the scenes and resulted in the creation of targeted advertising in a multi-billion-dollar industry. Our final examples are bait and switch and confirm shaming. Bait and switch is a dark pattern built around deception. This pattern is used to coerce users into something other than their original intentions. In the example provided, the Microsoft software was attempting to update to the most recent edition. When the user clicked the X to exit the pop-up, the computer actually restarted and began the update rather than closing out the tab. Confirm shaming is a dark pattern used to guilt the user into opting into something. This example is used to shame the user into a term of compliance with a company. As seen in the provided example on the right, the precise wording of "no thanks, I don't want an unlimited one-day delivery," and "I prefer to pay full price" are results of confirm shaming, resulting in a user signing up for a mailing list or joining of a service.
UX dark patterns have different impacts on the users. For example, they violate the user's trust. Once a user finds out about a UX dark pattern and things he lost due to a dark pattern that he didn't realize on a website, for example, his trust is violated because he won't want to come back anymore. It also shows lack of empathy for the user, because even though UX design is all about empathizing with the user, using dark pattern contradicts this idea. So this is going to cause a loss of customers and impacting the business negatively, because they're just going to take advantage of the users. Also, there'll be an increased friction in the workflow, as creating dark patterns will complicate the workflow. Because if the goal is to create a nice working website for the users to interact peacefully with the website, and adding the dark patterns onto that will slow down the workflow, and create conflict, and create more confusion in the process. So dark patterns aren't really advised. It also limits transparency, because the user interface, where users have to second guess every single action they take and constantly backtrack to make sure they didn't make any mistakes, is simply not a good UX design. So all these bad interactions can all lead to a loss of trust from the customers, which is not good for the business overall. Solutions to UX dark patterns. Unfortunately, there aren't any credible solutions to fix the dark patterns issue in the tech world. But however, industry insiders such as Bunker suggested that designers should have an ethical code of conduct, web privacy, honesty and respect should be the core elements. Furthermore, in the book Hook Model, designers are provided with the power to build habit-forming products. So this will help you designers come up with ways to enhance their products without necessarily taking advantage of the user. So, the creator of this book, Nir Eyal, came up with the manipulation matrix, which solely answers the question, should I attempt to hook my user? This is what designers should ask themselves. And despite how many solutions we come up with, it's all up to the designer to determine his own moral conduct and see if he should or shouldn't involve dark patterns in his product.
Thank you for joining and listening to our presentation. We hope you learned something new, and here are some of our resources.